Zenless Zone Zero's patch 2.5 recently just came out, and it is one of the most disappointing things I've ever had to experience. That includes my life. And I'm so disappointed and so upset that I am taking the time to make a video about how pissed off and disappointed I am. I stand on business when I say I think Hoyoverse deserves nobody's money. Not mine and definitely not yours. They have run their course and I put them as low as Ubisoft when it comes to how much it has crumbled. However, I am an avid hypocrite and still play Hoyo games, namely Star Rail and Zenless. And many moons ago I dabbled in Honkai Impact 3 as well as Genshin, but I could never get into them. I will make a note that I do not spend any money on these games because I'm a broke boy, but even if I wasn't, I don't think I would anyway. So I am gonna avoid talking about Star Rail for as much as I can because this is a Zenless video, but let's be clear that the Zenless problems are also very apparent in Star Rail, two peas in a shit pod and a shit company. As usual in my videos, some background so nobody can say I'm a tourist, I have followed Zenless from its earliest content releases over 3 years ago, and I was still actually in animation school when it was released. Look at me, so wistful, so happy. Little did he know that he would be depressed, unemployed, painfully lonely, and borderline suicidal. But anyway, I love Zenless so much on launch. I remember talking to my classmates about it, and at the time I thought that it would be my game of the year, topping Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Metaphor ReFantazio, Balatro, motherfucking Balatro. This game had me by the fucking balls and I loved it. I was there day in and day out playing this game with any spare time I had. So we skip a year and a half later and I'm reminded why grief is a reminder of what I once loved. So I do want to talk about the massive changes from 1.0 to 2.0 and beyond which will apex at 2.5 just to lament about pain and loss and disappointment, something my family is very used to feeling when they look at me. So one of the biggest things I always repeat in my videos is that I look at things with two views, as a simple consumer and a harsh critic. And many times I'm able to separate those lines and understand why things are the way they are. I implore you to actually start doing this if you aren't. You'd actually find yourself being able to discern a lot about what you like and what you don't like, and what can help you broaden your horizons in terms of both consumption as well as personal growth. So going back to Zenless 1.0, it was the exception to my two views rule. It was, in no exaggeration, mind-blowing. I had almost never played a game that made both the consumer and critic in me both sing its praises and look through the smoke and fog and still see all the wondrous beauty this game had. It was oozing style, visual appeal, music, gameplay, puzzles, rewards. Even the grinding system was relatively user-friendly. There was nothing about this game that I actually hated or even disliked. Other than gacha 50/50s, whoever decided that was the gold standard, I hope whenever you go to bed, your pillow will always be hot. Fuck you. Failing 50/50s. Oh my fucking god. It had a very crispy combat system that made me shiver whenever I heard the... With many different ways to explore the story both in and out of the hollows, and to top it all off, well-written characters that have depth beyond waifu bait or trauma bait. Hoyo stocks were rising, but little did I know, the beginning of the end was right around the corner. There have been many changes in games that have been divisive in gaming communities since the dawn of time, and to an extent, I won't really be too upset about what people like or dislike. Gameplay preference is highly personal, and I can't exactly hate people who only like gun or ball games, but I do dislike people who refuse to step out of their comfort zone. I mean, even though it is critically acclaimed, people still make fun of Clair Obscur Expedition 33 just because it's turn-based, or Umang Musume because it's just a numbers game about horse girls. Gameplay preference will always be a hot debate that has no ending, but nothing was hotter than this change. On September 25th, 2024, patch 1.2 Tour de Inferno, they removed TV mode. Babies were crying, parents were in shock, cars were speeding down roads in hopes of finding safe ground, non-believers fell to their knees and looked up to the skies for solace. Men and women of the cloth would only scream, "Why?" No, people actually like this change. Say what you want about my taste in gameplay styles, but I think the beginning of the end was removing TV mode. It was nothing like the normie gaming sphere had ever seen or experienced before. So, as someone who had a long history with games, see this pseudo top-down puzzle style WASD movement grid go away, I was heartbroken. But the masses online were ecstatic over this change, and because it was a more user-friendly than in-world lore accurate, my initial one view started to split to two. And for the simple reason that TV mode was lore accurate, unique in both traversal and storytelling, with its stellar design to top it off. If I could go back and trade my left nut for TV mode, I'd do it. Lord knows it's not getting any use. So we skip all the way forward to 2.0, and another big change that was begged for was finally implemented. Playable MC. And it just gets worse from here. So I'm gonna take a shot at people who just critique things just because they can without thinking. The reason why the story sucks more dick than the porn star now is because this vocal but highly misguided community of Hoyo consumers were the ones who pushed for this move, and they were happily gobbling up any nut that Hoyo would spray on their face. Now, I'm not delusional enough to say, oh, they guided Hoyo's hand like an overlord. No, that's not what I'm saying. I am very sure Hoyo did have some thought about it, or maybe that was even in a pre-planning stage. But I do feel that community vocalization did help skew their decision. What I'm saying is, when you feel strong emotions for this one thing, and you want this one thing to be improved, don't just think about how it can be improved, but think about if the improvement makes sense in the grand scheme of things. When I look at the Hoyo community from the TV removal days or the playable MC announcement days to now, I'm reminded of this image. The whole idea of the proxy suddenly involving himself directly in holo operations and whatnot, which then leads to this whole cultivation arc in 2.0, is the overarching reason as to why the story feels like such a mess. Hi guys, Editing Crow here. So if you go online and search up about the TV mode removal reaction, nowadays what you get are retrospectives on how removing TV mode was actually a negative thing. So it further enforces the fact that during this period of time, people really liked the removal of this mode because either it was unoptimized, they didn't like the puzzle system, it was too hand-holdy, XYZ, ABC, it doesn't matter. However, now, because people are starting to realize Zenless Zone Zero has become this very simplistic game with no core and no substance, they kind of start regretting, which now then further enforces the idea that a lot of these people don't really know what they wanted, and when they got it, it turned out to be shit. So I know I only put 2 Reddit posts about how people were happy about the removal of TV mode. However, way back then, if you were in the scene, you would actually be able to see so many people being very happy about the removal of TV mode. And that just brings us to today, where Zenless Zone Zero is the most cookie cutter gacha game out there. So I'll be referencing some of the key points from my own live stream of patch 2.5 on twitch.tv/xtaya, 2 eyes. Come drop by, have a chat with me. I love talking to people about why I'm right or wrong about certain things, or if you just want to shoot the shit. I did hear from a friend that when they watched my live stream, their wiener grew 3 inches and their girlfriend was very happy about it. To try to systematically dissect the whole patch, I have to approach things one at a time, so I'm going to start with the biggest problem of the patch, Shunguang. YSG is our newest addition to our character roster, and with her comes a slew of problems, the biggest of them being her introduction to the story and character writing. I'll be using everyone's favourite Void Hunter, Hoshimi Miyabi, as our comparison point. Now I hear you complaining, hey Crow, it is unfair of you to compare characters because it's all from a different time and place in-game and IRL game development phases, as well as their motivations being different. And to that I say eat dick. YSG is supposed to be at the level of importance as Miyabi, and they had just about, if not more time, to actually flesh her out properly. This is interesting because Miyabi is a good showing that these writers can create interesting characters with nuance and personality that is separate from the proxy and the player's POV. With her working as the Chief Officer of the Holo Special Operations Section 6, we know that she operates with a sense of justice on her chest. She doesn't really shy away from impossible situations.
To afford another great Holo.
Sir, please give me 5 minutes. If we can't tell which cores are real, then it's simple. We'll just destroy all cores within 5 minutes.
Her past is written as a tragedy with the loss of a mother, and we see the struggle of said past in her animated short film. Miyabi is her own character with her own solidified background that builds proper partnership with the proxy through time and effort. Inversely, YSG doesn't really have this level of depth. Now let's not discredit what she does have. She has been a disciple of the Yunhui Summit as the bearer of the Qingming sword, has a very protective brother, struggles with memory loss, her 5 senses, and a literal sense of self. And all that in itself is fine, but what really pushes the boundary way too far is her romantic interest in the proxy. She literally shows up out of nowhere, the proxy doesn't even do much, and yet we are this irreplaceable person in her life. Hoyo writers, for some reason, think it's good character writing when people just fall in love with our characters without any necessary growth or building a trust. However, to circumvent such criticism, they do the laziest fucking thing possible and give us a flashback sequence of the young proxy helping them. And somehow, that's more than enough for them to be hard stuck with us. Without any exaggeration, Hoyo constantly writes these characters that are either waifu bait or emotion bait, where they just try to fish for an emotional attachment without giving you a reason as to why you like them. Forgive me for being realistic about this, but fixing a music box a decade ago or just appearing to chat once in a blue moon isn't enough to build a deep connection with anyone. With Miyabi on the table, our first official encounter was more of a coincidental situation. In patch 1.0, HSO6 was hunting Nineveh and we just happened to be there. They, more importantly, Miyabi, exist in this world, with her own function without ever needing the proxy to step in to push her story forward until much later in patch 1.4, where our first real interaction with HSO6 and Miyabi is them attempting to arrest the proxy in a standoff against the Cunning Hares. Some bullshit happens and we are forced into a partnership with Miyabi, where she doesn't exactly trust us, but makes a deal to get out of the hollows, and from then on, the whole rigmarole of conversation and building of trust happens, which then hit a fever pitch at the end of 1.4. So when you put these two side by side, you have to be blind and deaf or delusional to say that these two are the same. It's not that YSG is bad, it's that she's boring. All depth she has is surface level under the pretense of emotional confusion, with self-preservation mixed in with those unfounded emotions with the proxy. Now, I cannot judge anyone who feels deep emotions or relatability to any character they like. In fact, more power to you. But I also think it's important you dissect the character you idolize and look at them at a 360 view. Understanding their flaws and learning from them is just as important as picking up the good ones. Hoyo constantly writes and thinks that they can get away with waifu bait or emotion bait characters just because it's easy and makes people open their wallets. But a truly nuanced character that connects with people is never easy, and if you are that kind of guy who just pulls for the meta, that's perfectly fine too. It alleviates the headache. Now, putting YSG aside, I want to talk about the patch's story before its presentation, because by fucking god, the presentation is the worst I've seen in any video game in a very long time. It actively ruins the story's pacing and feel. So, the beginning in itself is, okay, just standard pre-action lore build-up. Some spooky flowers, making a deal with Zhao, looking for YG's brother in the hollow. We are introduced to the greatest fucking character of 2.5, Lock Spring. We learn a lot of lore from Lock Spring, and is the only time that I actually cared as much when we were listening to someone talking. And then out of fucking nowhere, we have a date sequence mid-important situation, as if finding her brother wasn't important, and there's still the spooky flowers. These are big deals. Now, it's around here where you learn she's actually been having memory problems for a very long time and has been memorizing her diary to lie to the gang, and she's kind of at the end of a rope, which is kind of sad. Not really. Bullshit happens with the spooky flowers, and ultimately YSG makes a sacrifice to protect the proxy and clear out the spooky flowers. We do this weird illusionary gauntlet with her brother's help to bring YSG back, and all is well and good. But nope, we get rug pulled and it's actually all gone to shit again, with the hollows about to reach a cataclysmic state, and all the characters from 2.0 are now doing a full Avengers Assemble moment. Towards the final fight, Lock Spring is revealed as the twist villain as he gives a Metal Gear 3 level speech. I am not kidding, he actually makes a Metal Gear 3 speech about how humanity constantly fails, their decisions always lead to destruction, and the only best way to move forward is a loss of individuality. Pretty base, to be honest. We conclude the patch with YSG being inaugurated as a new Void Hunter, and there's a likelihood that Lady Sunbringer is alive. The dreams of a playable Yixuan isn't happening. The mayor has a pretty bad hidden agenda, and the proxies are somehow related to the creator. The beginning is alright, decent ramp up follows, a fucking horrible middle point, a salvageable 4/5, and a underwhelming ending. However, in my personal opinion, the biggest travesty in the whole story writing is how they treat Yixuan. She's been introduced as this important figure in both the proxy's life and a reliable right hand to the mayor, but for some reason, every iteration of each patch, they treat her more and more like trash. So we know that she had been slightly manipulated by the mayor for the sake of indoctrinating YSG as the new Void Hunter. Now that may have been a 5D chess move, that's cool, that's one side. But then, they try to paint her as this negligent asshole who let YSG form a pact with a Qingmei sword, as if she doesn't have her own grief with the loss of her own sister, and that she has been and is actively trying to solve the debilitating effects of the sword. It's juvenile at best and a complete lack of foresight at worst. Now believe it or not, all of this could have been saved if not for the straight dog shit presentation. They took a page out of the Star Rail team with the amount of black screens with text. I got so pissed off at the black screens, I went on a rant on stream, and just to prove a point, let me do this. There were a total of 19 black screens with text. In the first fucking hour, in the total 6-hour story, it had 86 fucking black screens with text, and that's not counting those that are walls of text with color in the background. I swear to God, there's probably over a dozen I've missed. Holy fuck, why are they so lazy? There are also some major offenses like these QTE sections that don't actually matter. I've deliberately tried to fail them just to see if the QTE would fail, but no, it just passes anyway. It's just pointless busy work to make it seem like things are as important or in need of fixing that only you can do. But the truth is, nothing really matters at all. It's weird because there have been only one instance of a QTE mechanic before this patch, and there have been consequences of failing and a benefit to passing.
Show me your conviction with that blade of yours, Magus! You've certainly improved. Show me your conviction with that blade of yours, Magus! Your resolve is weak, and so is your technique.
Why even bother wasting time adding this section if it's just to give an illusion of control when it's ultimately pointless? And in the last note of lazy presentation is the final battle, where they show this sick cinematic of our 4 squads squaring up. It definitely raised my expectations, where you possibly get to play all 4 teams in a simultaneous map raid situation, with you hot swapping between each teams, or maybe selecting a team to advance, which then lead to a climactic showdown with YSG and the proxy at the forefront. But no, you get a slapdash version of that, of less than a minute combat sequence, with each team that is as underwhelming as can be, and a random as fuck character appearance that makes no contextual sense. My personal opinion is that, and bear with me, every patch brought forward from Hoyo, be it Genshin, Star Rail, Zenless, is a stark reminder that this company doesn't actually know how to connect with players. They constantly push out these bait characters or rug pull baby tier story writing to try to make you feel something, as shallow as it may be, to hope for you to open your wallets, or some rule of cool character that doesn't really have any good development. Now granted, they are very cool, but that's honestly not enough. In the past, they had this tender love and care for their writing or gameplay systems, and through just 1 year, it has reached such a decrepit state. If you're like me and you don't spend a cent, that's cool, drain those fuckers dry. But if you do spend money on Hoyo products like currency or merch, whatever else, and you are happy with your decision, I am happy you are happy. I just think that when you give money to a corporation or company, you need to sort of think about what kind of message you are sending them. If you disagree with every point I made in the video, that's perfectly fine. I'm just a dude on the internet spouting shit because I'm angry at this company, and I'm frustrated that there are people out there shoveling up this drivel and calling it deep and engaging, throwing their wallets when all it is a nothing burger. But I do want to maybe pass this one point onto you. Free-to-play games with paid currency will always exist, but when you decide to put your money into something or anything you like, are you giving out the right message? Are you getting what you deserve as a consumer? And are you willing to sacrifice your own time and money on something that clearly lacks a layer of polish that should have been there from the start? This doesn't apply to Hoyo only, it applies to literally anything. You as a consumer should be thinking about the types of movies, music, streaming services, delivery apps, whatever you spend your money on and what it means. As mentioned, I am an avid hypocrite and I will still play Star Rail and Zenless without spending a dime because I don't think Hoyo deserves my money, or at this point, lack of money. And I just want to repeat, if you are completely satisfied with your purchases, that is 100% fine. It is your money, your time, and far be it from me to try to stop you. The only issue comes in when people endlessly consume without a lick of hesitation, which then tells companies they can get away with raw dogging you without any consequence and don't even try to think of ways to improve their work. And of course, the devs aren't bad or evil, not at all. If we look back from 1.0 to now, there have been really good changes that I can only tip my hat to. The issue comes in when there's a layer of complacency with things that are the highest revenue earners, and for Hoyo, it's the characters and the weapons. I am sick of the same cookie cutter character, tragic backstory hero or villain, something to prove Andy, rule of cool Joe. Give me something with substance, give me something that I can look at and say, fuck, this is a good character. That's it for me. I will now continue my depressing life. See you guys next time.